written 800 years before Jesus was born. Rabbi Brawer had no other choice. He had to believe in Jesus. Next.
It's supernatural.
Welcome, Holy Spirit. Go and flow. My guest, Rabbi Ira Brawer, was born in New York to parents escaping the Holocaust in Germany. Growing up in an Orthodox Jewish family, he rebelled and became atheistic. But then his wife, Gloria, confronted him. I want to find out about Rabbi Ira's generations of rabbinic Jewish heritage. How many generations did it go back?
I went back to the 1500s, and it's something that I actually just found out about recently. Even though when I was growing up, my grandmother always said that, oh, we come from a long line of rabbis, and we kind of thought, yeah.
I think almost all Jewish families say that. My family said it.
Right. Turns out we did have a line of rabbis. Going back to the 1500s, there was a chief rabbi in the city of Prague, and his son, and beyond that, there were others as well.
Now, you grew up in New York.
Yes.
Tell me about that. What was that like?
Well, this is back in the 50s and 60s, and my parents were, as you mentioned, immigrants. My dad was from Austria, Vienna, and they got out before the Nazis came in. My mom and her family lived under Hitler for 3 years in Germany, and they were able to, and both stories are really miraculous.
You wouldn't be here today.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. That's right.
You were born on an amazing date. What happened on the day you were born?
Yeah, so this is an interesting thing. So I was born on April 20th, 1950. And I never knew what significance of that date was until I was in my 20s. I met someone who had the same birthday as I did. And he said, oh, you know who else has the same birthday? I said, no, who? Adolf Hitler. My mom was from Germany, and I know that it was a national holiday for Hitler's birthday for those years.
Well, your mother probably experienced in the beginning days of Hitler the anti-Semitism, and they wanted to put a little picket fence around you to protect you from anti-Semitism in America. So they sent you to Jewish schools. They're called yeshivas. Tell me about that.
Right. Go to school. So we started out in Long Island, then we moved into the city because of my dad's business. And first grade comes around, they want to send me to yeshiva because to protect me from potential anti-Semitism. Of course, this is 10 years after the Holocaust. We had family members that were killed. So they sent me to yeshiva, and we attended an Orthodox synagogue every Shabbat, shul.
So your parents, unfortunately, got a divorce. How old were you when that happened?
So I was 11 years old.
Did it impact you at all?
It impacted me a lot. Back then, in the Jewish world, especially the Orthodox world that we were part of, divorce was really not heard of at that time. So there's a lot of fighting going on.
I remember the same thing was happening in my family, and they decided not to get a divorce. For the same reasons. Yeah. But your family decided to get
they decided to get divorced. It was very shaming, for one thing, for me, being in yeshiva, Orthodox, and so on, and tried to hide it, didn't want anyone to know about it, but I think everyone probably did know. And that shame and fear, anxiety, and actually stayed with me into adulthood, and so needed God's healing from that.
It didn't stop being Jewish. That's something God did. But did you kind of turn away from yeshiva life and stuff and go into a synagogue?
Yeah, so after my bar mitzvah, we say that I graduated from Judaism.
I didn't care about God back then.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about me. I don't care about him.
Always knew I was Jewish, so that never changed. But the idea of, personal God or a relationship with God really wasn't in my radar at all until much later.
And you, like many people, in college especially, you got into drugs.
Yeah, got into drugs, partying, the whole 9 yards, and so much so that I dropped out of college after a year and a half and took a semester off that lasted 20 years. And did eventually get a degree, but much later. And went out to Colorado Boulder in 1970 was a mecca for
that's what I would think
the hippies,
for drugs.
You know, and it was like, yeah, literally, it was, this is it. Living the hippie life, exactly.
So you're involved in a marriage with infidelity, and it ends in divorce, and you fall in love with a beautiful, my notes say, a beautiful Southern Belle waitress named Gloria. Now, Gloria, tell me more.
Well, I was born and raised in Mississippi, and when I hit about that age, I decided late teens, early 20s to go out to Colorado. I had never left the South, so I get out to Colorado, and I start a job as a waitress, and I get to this, my first day, my first people that I ever waited on happened to be the ex and the 2 children in Ira, which was very interesting.
Wasn't ex at the time.
First
She wasn't an
table you
ex.
have as a
The
waitress.
first time I ever waited on a table, it was him, the kids, and her. And so I was, I was just me, and my Southern accent was a lot more than it is now. And so they had a hard time understanding me. I had a hard time understanding them. And so we went through that, and the wife worked at the restaurant. And so we all became friends and, did a lot of things together and did a lot of partying and things like that together, because that was kind of our lifestyle at that point.
Now, when you started dating Ira, were you both addicts to drugs, would you say, or no?
Well, addicts, it was our lifestyle. It's what we did.
To me, I
And
would use that as a synonym, addict, but go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, well, it's what we did. Everybody we knew, the town we lived in was very small, Estes Park, Colorado. Very busy in the summer, but very dead in the winter. So we partied a lot and just hung out with a lot of crazy people that did crazy things like us.
And how about alcohol?
So alcohol was part of it, smoking cigarettes, the drugs that were available at that time. And I would drink because in my childhood there was abuse and some things in my childhood. So when I got to doing the drinking and the drugs, it was a way to not have so much pain so I could medicate myself through that. So, but once I started drinking, sometimes I would black out and go into blackouts where I could be up talking and doing and everything, but have no idea of it, not even know it. And so that was my journey for a while. Ira was just smoking pot every day and doing whatever. He wasn't as much of a drinker.
Okay. You had a wake-up call in your car.
I did.
What happened?
We had an after-hours party at the bar, which means we stayed after hours and drank and did more drugs. We got in the car. Ira couldn't drive. I'll drive. And when you're loaded like that, you think that you can drive the best. And so we started on the road. It was a 2-lane road. It was around a lake. And we got ready to go around the curve. And I lost control. I was driving too fast. We went down an embankment, end over end, and landed in this field. And at the bottom, I was thrown out of the car. Ira was still strapped in, and we had some drugs in the car, so we threw the drugs out in the field. And Ira needed to get in touch with somebody. We didn't have cell phones or anything in those days. So he walked up the hill, and before we had gone around the curve down in the gully, there was a phone booth there, old phone booth, and Ira went to the phone booth, had no change, and there was change in the receiver part of it.
So he would not have been able to make a call.
Exactly, exactly.
So I called a lady that worked for me. So at this point, I had my own real estate company. I was a, quote, prominent citizen in the town. And here it is. It could have lost everything.
Yep.
And so I called a lady that worked for me that kind of knew what we were up to, and she came and helped us. Sheriff came. Anyway, and it was definitely a wake-up call, and we can definitely look back now and know God's hand was protecting us, because we could have both easily been killed.
Right.
How did you get free from the alcohol?
Well, this guy came up to our house. It was an Easter. We had a big party. Everybody came over, and he saw me drinking, and he knew that something was going on with me, because the way I was acting and how I was drinking and all that, because he had people in his life that he recognized. And he said, hey, I've got a place if you will go. He was selling some Amway, and he just got in the business. He said, hey, you would be great at this. Why don't you meet me? And I met him in Boulder. He never talked to me about Amway. He started talking to me about my drinking. And I was like, hey, I drink like everybody else I know. What's the big deal? I didn't think I saw some people that I thought were pretty alcoholic, but not me. So we went on with that, and
I'm told most alcoholics don't even realize they're alcoholics.
Exactly. So he talked to me, and he asked me to go to this treatment center. I went out to Minnesota, and I'm a little Southern girl. I really didn't know much about Minnesota, so I went out there. I was there for a month, and got out and stopped drinking, and went to AA. And there was another stepping stone.
Well, there was another stepping stone.
Yes, there was a big stepping stone. Yeah.
Ira's wife announced one day, I am born again. Mm-hmm. Ira didn't have a clue as to what that meant. Be right back.
For 15 years, Project 77 has broken down spiritual walls to reach Jewish hearts, as over 2 million Jewish homes directly receive the gift of one of Sid Roth's evangelistic books. They Thought for Themselves tells 10 real-life stories of Jewish people, including Sid Roth, who had radical encounters with the truth that Jesus is the Jewish Messiah. Heaven only knows how many hearts have been transformed and their eternal destinies rewritten. A 12-year-old Jewish boy opened his family's mailbox before anyone else and found Sid's book, They Thought for Themselves. He read it cover to cover and gave his life to Yeshua.
Many years ago, I had a dream. God was telling me to put together a book of Jewish testimonies for unsaved Jewish people to come to know the Messiah. This is the set time to reach Jewish people.
With Project 77, you're not just helping us print and distribute 7 books or 77 books. You're writing your own eternal legacy of love for God's chosen people and helping them write the next chapter of their lives. Now is your time to place one of Sid's evangelistic books straight into Jewish homes and hands. Your $77 gift sends 7 copies into 7 Jewish homes. A gift of $777 means 77 Jewish homes get a copy. That's like reaching an entire neighborhood. Go to sidroth.org/77 or call now.
So Ira's wife says, I'm born again. Ira doesn't know what that means. And I think you kind of thought your wife was flipped out and was sugar or crazy. Explain.
Yeah, so she comes in the house one day. This is about 6 months after we got married. So when we got married, we had a Unitarian minister, it was a friend, and asked him if he would marry us. He said, sure.
You really ran from Judaism.
Yeah, exactly. And I had one condition, and that is we don't want to mention God.
Yeah, well, you went to the right minister.
Point, I was an atheist.
You were okay.
Right, exactly. Right. So he was fine with that. Yeah, no problem. So now let's fast forward 6 months after we get married, and she comes in the house one day all excited. I am born again. Really, I accepted Jesus. And I said, you are crazy. You are Michigan. Well, I thought that. I don't know if I said it, but I didn't really know what it meant. The only time I'd ever heard that term before was years earlier at a magazine interview with Jimmy Carter, who said he was born again. I didn't know what that really meant. Christian thing, something having to do with that. But don't bother me with that. I said to her, I'm Jewish, and that's fine for you because you're a Gentile. Because in my belief system, Jesus was not for Jews. Jesus was the Christian God. And growing up, in the environment I grew up in, Christians did those horrible things to us. Why would I want to become one? So that was, my first thought was like, okay, that's okay for you. You're a Gentile. Don't bother me with that stuff. And I'm thinking, does that mean we have to get a divorce? I mean, we don't, I'm not on board with that. Mm-hmm. And
Now, when he reacted the way he did, what did you say to him?
Well, I want you to come too. You need to be a believer. What were we supposed to do? We're married now, so I'm going to go this path and he's going to go a different path? He needs to get saved. that was all I kept thinking. He needs to come. He needs to come. He needs to come. He needs to come.
Did it bother you that she was doing that?
Well, I figured that was her life, and she could do that. She had already been going to church Sundays, and I would go for a
She's taking the
run.
kids, and you're not going.
That's correct.
Why didn't you go?
Because I'm Jewish. Why would I go to a church?
Oh, okay. Gloria had a secret weapon. Your kids.
Yeah.
What
Yes.
happened?
Yeah, so our kids, these are my two kids from my first marriage. We'd get them on weekends, and they were probably 8 and 6 years old. And so Gloria wanted to take them to church, and I said, well, my first wife and I, she was Catholic, and I was Jewish, and we just decided when they got adults, they could decide for themselves what to do. And she came back with logic, which said, yeah, well, if they don't know anything, how are they going to decide? I thought, okay, yeah, go ahead and take them to church. So she starts taking them to church on Sunday.
Did that bother you at all?
No, not really.
Okay.
Because, it was them, and they were little, and whatever. Learn a little bit about God some way, even though I didn't believe in God. I'll go to church. And
They were so sweet and innocent.
second time, they asked.
They were so sweet. They would say, Glory, how come Dad doesn't go to church and we have to? I said, well, he's Jewish. Jews don't believe in Jesus. They're out. We're in. That's replacement theology in a thumb, a nail. And so they would come again. Well, how come we have to go to church and Daddy doesn't? And I said, you know what? Why don't you go ask your dad? So
That was the secret weapon.
That was the secret weapon.
Right.
Yes.
So they come down.
You could not say
How
no.
could I say no? And I thought, you know what?
This
I
little
saw
girl.
I'm in real estate, and in the city I have my own business. Might be good for business. So I'll go. What harm will it be? And so I went to church, Baptist church in Estes Park, and a lot of people I knew from being in business and whatnot, and they were all so nice. Little did I know,
Praying for him.
she had the church praying for me. Her Jewish husband needs to get saved, And if I'd have known that, I probably would have said, forget it, I'm not going in there. But one thing led to another, and there was a guy there that was leading a men's Bible study that I knew, and he was leading a Bible study for young businessmen in the town, and he invited me to join him. And I said, okay, might be good for business, And so it was. So I went, and it was the first time that I ever opened the New Testament, and they were studying the Gospel of John. And so as I am studying and reading, I always knew Jesus was Jewish, but it never really, I never really knew how much of that, what that actually meant, that not only was he Jewish, all his followers were Jewish, they were in Israel. Obvious things now I look back on, of course, but at that time I didn't know. I'd never read the New Testament. So going to synagogue on Shabbat and the feasts and all that, and it just started the journey for me. And it took
the
some
thing
time.
that pushed you over the edge was a chapter written some 800 years before Jesus was even born.
Yes.
It was Isaiah 53. Take me back then. What did you think when you read that for yourself?
Right. So I started in this journey reading the New Testament, and I thought, I need to go back to the Hebrew Scriptures. So I went, going to Yeshiva and so on. So we did study Torah and so on, some Talmud and whatnot. And somebody gave us a book about Isaiah 53. And of course, a lot of people were giving me books and tracts, and read this, Ira, read this. So Isaiah 53, all right, that's in the Hebrew Scriptures. I'll read that. So I read it, and it is eye-opening. And I'm reading it all the way through, and I'm going, this has to be about Jesus, because the description, he will bear the sins of many, and by his stripes we are healed. And I believe he spoke to me, probably maybe the first time where I really sensed his voice. And there was a moment in time in a certain place, and when we go back there to visit sometimes, I know the exact spot. We're driving up the mountain, and I'm driving somehow, and I'm in literally a different world with God. And I open my heart and I say yes to Yeshua at that moment. And I just felt the peace of God come into my heart.
Rabbi Ira, why is believing in Yeshua so important?
Yeah. That's a really good question, Sid. Thank you. So what I came to understand is if we read, for instance, Leviticus, the book of Leviticus, which is all about the sacrifices, and people go, oh, that was, the Old Testament, but now we have Jesus. but there's so much we can learn from there about God's nature. Why is that? Well, the word for sacrifice in Hebrew is the word korban. And the word korban comes from the same word as draw near, likrov, to draw near. And so what was the purpose of the sacrifices? The sacrifices were a picture of God's mercy, that in his mercy, he wanted the people to draw near to him. And the only way that could happen, because of sin that separated the people, talking about the people of Israel now, in that time, is that he, in his mercy, allowed a sacrifice of an innocent animal to take upon that animal, the guilt, the sin of the person, the offerer. And in his mercy, he allowed the innocence of the animal to be transferred to the offerer, the person, and then the result could be they could draw near to God. And Yeshua did the very same thing, except his sacrifice was a one-time sacrifice for all time. And in his sacrifice, his korban, we can draw near boldly. The writer of Hebrews writes that we can come boldly before the throne of grace and receive mercy in time of need. And there's that, the chesed, the mercy that we can receive. Why? Because Yeshua, Jesus, paid the price. And so when I think about all that in context, then we understand, and unfortunately when the temple was destroyed, the rabbis had a problem. The ones that didn't believe in him, they started a new system of prayer, good deeds, and charity can avert the judgment. Well, that's not Torah. That's not what the Torah says. The Torah says without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin.
Well, they only had two choices, the rabbis. Either believe Jesus is the Messiah, or tell a big lie.
Exactly.
Yep.
We're offering Rabbi Ira Brawer's exclusive free digital download, Out of the Ashes. Rabbi Ira, like all of us, suffered much hurt, much trauma in his life. God downloaded a prayer that set him free. When he prays this prayer over you, the same heavenly presence that set him free will come upon you. This free, exclusive digital download is available now at sidroth.org/4158D. But you know, Ira, there are so many Jewish people like us,
yes,
that have never had an opportunity to do what Ira did, what I did, what Ira's wife did. So we have developed Project 77. It actually came from a dream from God, in which Jesus gave me strategy to reach the world's entire Jewish population. It's called Project 77. God told me to develop a book of 10 Jewish testimonies. I did. To date, we have mailed or distributed 2.6 million of these books to Jewish families in multiple languages. I would love for you to get a copy of this book. Why don't you go to my webpage, which is sidroth.org/77, and order these books. But even before you order the book, I want you to have your own experience with Jesus. Say, Jesus, I make you my Lord and Savior.
Amen.
Live inside of me. Give me my own experience with you.
Thank you.